Mr. Jensen, the judge said slowly, peering over her glasses like she couldn't quite believe the words coming out of her own mouth. Are you telling this court the HOA has built an entire cul-de-sac on your land? The courtroom projector hummed, and with a soft click, the surveyor's map filled the screen. Thick red lines traced the parcel boundaries with all the subtlety of a crime scene outline. Half the HOA's prized Evergreen Meadows subdivision, 3 houses, a playground, and their beloved little gazebo was shaded in aggressive red. The label across the red zone read, "Property of N. Jensen." T. The plaintiff's table, HOA President Marley Yates, went from spray tan orange to the color of printer paper. That can't be right," she stammered. "That's their line. Our builder, our developer," he showed us. The judge lifted a hand. "Ma'am, please sit down. You've had your turn. It's Mr. Jensen's time to speak." At the defense table, I sat in jeans, a flannel shirt, and my work boots, still carrying dust from the property I'd left that morning. I'd shaved, technically, but it wasn't fooling anybody. I looked more like someone who should be tightening bolts on a tractor than dismantling an HOA in district court. I nodded first at the judge, then at the map. "So," I said calmly, "when they told me my barn was encroaching on HOA property, turns out the only thing encroaching was their entire neighborhood. Before the court dates, the maps, and the quiet grinning, I'd just been trying to build a barn and mind my own business. I own 10 acres on the outskirts of Cedar Hollow, an old farming town slowly being swallowed by beige subdivisions and artisan cold brew stands. My land was one of the last original parcels left, passed down from my grandfather. Pasture, tree line, and a weathered old farmhouse. I'd remodeled piece by piece. The HOA came later. Their subdivision was called Evergreen Meadows. Despite having neither evergreens nor meadows, just rows of aggressively similar houses, and a retention pond cosplaying as a lake, the developer swooped in, grabbed nearby land, slapped a gated entrance on it, and acted like they'd built paradise instead of a copy-paste neighborhood. Fine by me. They had their realm. I had mine. I worked from home as a freelance mechanic and fabricator, fixing tractors, welding odd metal sculptures for local artists, anything that paid. I needed a barn to store parts, set up a proper workshop, and keep my tools away from raccoons who were getting bold enough to file taxes at this point. I filed all the permits with the county, double-checked the property lines using my grandfather's old survey he'd kept in a fireproof box, and hired a local crew. The day the post went in the ground, I was on my porch with a mug of hot coffee when I heard a sound. Not construction, not machinery, heels, and then a voice. Excuse me, sir." I turned to see a woman power walking across my field like she was charging rent for every square foot of earth. Blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, and a shiny name badge clipped to her shirt. Evergreen Meadows HOA, President Marley Yates. I stared down at my coffee. Great. The very first sentence out of her mouth confirmed everything. "You can't build that," she declared, pointing at the barn frame like I'd slapped her with it. "That structure violates HOA guidelines." I blinked. "Good thing I don't live in your HOA." She laughed like I'd told a cute joke. "All these lots are part of the Evergreen Meadows planned community." "No, they're not," I said. "My family's had this land since before your planned community existed. County records say otherwise." But Marley's smile faltered a little. "Our developer showed us the plot. This field is designated as future amenities." "Yeah," I said. "Future amenities on my current property." She pulled a folder from her enormous tote bag like she was about to hand me a cease and desist and a coupon booklet at the same time. "You're required to submit plans to the Architectural Review Committee," she warned. "Outbuildings must match the community aesthetic neutral tones. No agricultural structures visible from the street. No livestock. No workshops. No, look, a sip of coffee. I'm building a barn, not a Bass Pro Shops." She frowned harder. "Sir, you're not understanding. Your barn is within Evergreen Meadows." I pointed at the rusted fence line my grandfather had built decades ago. "My property line is that fence. Been there longer than your fancy gate." The next day, an email hit my inbox from a generic address. HOA board at evergreenmeadows.com. "Dear resident, You are in violation of the Evergreen Meadows covenants, conditions, and restrictions regarding unapproved structures. Cease construction immediately or be subject to daily fines and potential legal action. I replied once, I am not, and have never been, a resident of Evergreen Meadows. Your HOA has no authority over my land. Do not trespass again. They did not appreciate that. Within a week, Marley had taken photos of every angle of my property. Random residents walking their dogs started lingering suspiciously near my fence. Someone zip-tied a bright orange notice to my gate. Illegal structure stop work order Evergreen Meadows. HOA removed it, folded it neatly, and placed it in a folder labeled evidence. Marley escalated. She called the county, claiming I was building without permits. The county inspector came, checked everything, nodded, and left. She called animal control, claiming I had livestock in a residential area. I had 2 elderly goats and a rooster who yelled at sunrise. Animal control checked my zoning, shrugged, and left. She even tried getting delivery drivers to avoid my road by insisting it was private HOA access. I installed cameras and kept building. It could have ended there. But Marley didn't just want to control her neighborhood. She wanted my land too. The escalation arrived in a thick certified letter. I signed for it, opened it at my kitchen table, and read, Notice of Legal Action, Evergreen Meadows. HOA intends to file suit for encroachment of your unauthorized barn onto HOA common property. I read it again and again. The remedy requested, remove the barn, restore the land, and transfer the disputed portion to them for use as community green space. They were literally suing me to hand over my land. I laughed, then stopped laughing, then called a lawyer. My attorney, a calm, razor-sharp woman named Gina Park, skimmed the documents, raised one eyebrow, and said, This is either a massive misunderstanding or the dumbest power move I've seen in years. I brought her everything: surveys, tax records, my grandfather's deed, the county permit. Gina grew quiet as she compared the HOA's map to the official county lines. These don't match, she finally said. The developer does something shady? I asked. Not necessarily shady, Gina replied, but definitely sloppy. Their plat map has Evergreen Meadows extending farther than it actually does. Looks like the developer eyeballed the parcel lines and hoped no one would notice. She hired a licensed surveyor for a full modern survey of my property. 2 weeks later, I was standing in my field while a guy with a tripod and GPS unit walked the perimeter, measuring and planting neon flags one after another. The surveyor's expression tightened more and more as he moved across the field. Something wrong? I finally asked. He pointed at one of the neon flags resting near my old fence line. According to county records and your deed, he said slowly, your land doesn't stop at that fence. My stomach dropped. How far does it go? He checked his tablet, then glanced toward Evergreen Meadows' perfect little houses lined up like teeth in a smug grin. You see that cul-de-sac? He asked. Half of that, including those backyards, he pointed. Yeah, that's yours. I blinked hard. Come again? Those 3 houses? He added, pointing again. They're partially built on your parcel. Looks like the developer misplatted the subdivision, and nobody caught it. Legally, they're sitting on your land, so the barn wasn't encroaching on HOA property after all. The HOA was encroaching on mine. When court day arrived, Mara showed up dressed like she was testifying before Congress, blazer, pearls, and an armful of color-coded binders. She brought a printed copy of the entire CC and Rs and a stack of glossy brochures calling Evergreen Meadows a premier gated lifestyle community. I came with Gina, clean jeans, and a manila folder. The HOA's attorney went first. He delivered a dramatic monologue about how my rogue agricultural structure threatened community harmony, property values, and the fragile ecosystem of beige houses. Mara dabbed theatrically at her eyes whenever she thought people were watching. They introduced their big exhibit, a developer-drawn plat map showing the HOA's boundaries, vaguely swallowing my field like a Pac-Man mouth. Then it was Gina's turn. Your Honor, she began. We do not dispute that Mr. Jensen built a barn. We dispute that it stands on their land. She clicked the projector. The county certified survey came up, crisp, and undeniable. The room's temperature dropped as everyone realized something was very, very wrong. The map showed my parcel traced from decades-old county records. Evergreen Meadows lots were overlaid on top, floating well into my land. A thick boundary line marked where the HOA's legal authority ended. And then, the kicker, a shaded section labeled portion of Evergreen Meadows, lots 7, 8, 9, encroaching on parcel owned by Noah Jensen. The judge leaned forward. "Explain this," she said. Gina smiled professionally. "Gladly, Your Honor. The original farm parcel predates the subdivision and has never been subdivided. The developer's plat map incorrectly extended new lots into my client's land. The county never updated the ownership because that section still belongs on record to Mr. Jensen." The judge asked, "So, whose land are those houses standing on?" Gina didn't hesitate. "His." A ripple of shock passed through the court. The HOA attorney sputtered, "This must be some clerical error. Our developer," the developer, Gina cut in, "not the county, not the recorder's office, not the surveyor. They sold lots. They had no legal right to extend." The judge turned to Mara. "Did the HOA verify its boundaries with an independent survey?" Mara's mouth opened and closed. "We trusted the developer, so you never checked," the judge said flatly. I sat quietly, hands folded, while the room slowly realized the barn they tried to bully out of existence was the least of their problems. 2 weeks later, the judge issued her ruling. It was not gentle. In summary, she read from the bench that the court finds Evergreen Meadows HOA has no jurisdiction over Mr. Jensen's property. The barn stands entirely within his parcel and is fully approved by the county. Portions of the HOA common areas, and at least 3 homes, encroach upon Mr. Jensen's land. Additionally, the HOA through its officers pursued baseless legal action and repeatedly harassed Mr. Jensen. Mara stared straight ahead, eyes glossy. Therefore, the judge continued, the HOA's lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, the HOA is ordered to pay Mr. Jensen's legal fees and all survey costs. The HOA attorney exhaled, clearly expecting at least that much. Then the judge lowered the boom. As to the encroachment issue, the parties may pursue either a purchase of the encroached land from Mr. Jensen at fair market value, or B, failing that, the removal or modification of structures currently encroaching. The word removal hit like a shotgun blast. Someone in the back whispered, "Our houses." "And one more matter," the judge added sweetly. "Given the HOA's conduct trespassing, issuing fraudulent stop work notices, and attempting to coerce land from Mr. Jensen, the court finds cause for a cease and desist order. The HOA and its officers are barred from contacting Mr. Jensen directly. All communication must go through legal counsel." Outside, HOA board members clustered together in a panicked huddle, arguing costs and damage control. Homeowners stared at me like I just bought the ground beneath their feet. Gina patted my arm. "Now comes the fun part." "The fun part?" I asked. "You get to decide what your land is worth," she said. "And I strongly suggest you don't let them off cheap." Word spread fast. Local news jumped on it. HOA sues man over barn, learns neighborhood is built on his land. The comments were merciless. Evergreen Meadows went from premier lifestyle community to that HOA that built on the wrong lot. Real estate agents panicked. Potential buyers Googled the subdivision, saw the headlines, and noped out instantly. Suddenly, power had shifted to the guy in the flannel. Negotiations dragged on for months. The HOA's first offer was laughable, a lowball check offered for community harmony. I refused, sliding them a number that made their treasurer swallow hard. Eventually, the individual homeowners of lots 7, 8, and 9 banded together. They were furious, but not at me. Their anger was aimed squarely at the HOA and the developer who had built their homes on unstable legal ground. The final agreement was reached. The 3 homeowners purchased perpetual easements for the parts of their houses built on my land, for a fair price. The HOA bought a smaller easement for the playground and walking path, and agreed to pay me an annual maintenance fee. The developer, dragged in under threat of its own lawsuit, quietly paid the HOA a massive settlement, most of which went straight to me for land rights, and buried in the settlement was a clause I insisted on. Evergreen Meadows HOA acknowledges it has no authority, jurisdiction, or enforcement rights over the property of Mr. Noah Jensen, nor may it attempt to annex or claim said property in the future. Mara signed it last. By then, she was no longer the HOA president. After the ruling and public humiliation, the homeowners called a special meeting. The leaked minutes were brutal. Vote to remove Mara Yates as HOA president, 39-1 in favor. Motion to bar her from any future board position, passed. Motion to require independent surveys before any future land claims, passed. Mara's face went white as each vote was read. She clutched her binder, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. But I was protecting our community, she whispered. No one answered. One by one, her neighbors looked away. She walked out alone, the clip-on badge still pinned to her blazer, suddenly meaningless.